A roundup of this week's top stories here on RT International. Israel withholds taxes owed to the Palestinians following their attempts to join the International Criminal Court. Their bid for statehood fell flat in the UN Security Council this week. Germany reportedly believes the euro can survive Greece's exit from the single currency should the far left win the looming election. And week-long anti-government protests reignite with new force in Bahrain after authorities arrest the Gulf monarchy's key opposition leader. Also, thousands of people across Sweden have rallied in support of the Muslim community after a series of arson attacks on mosques in the past week. Hello, welcome. You're watching The Weekly here on RT International. Now, a new front in the political war between Israel and the Palestinians is taking shape. Israel wants to punish the administration for going to the International Criminal Court with claims of war crimes. And here's what the Palestinians could gain if they become a member of the court in The Hague. They would be able to launch prosecutions against Israeli military and political figures for alleged crimes involving building settlements on occupied lands. The court could also look into whether the Israeli army is responsible for heavy civilian casualties. Plus, any arrest warrants against Israeli officials could make it tough for them to go abroad. Paula Sleer has more now from Tel Aviv.
The latest word from Israeli officials is that they're threatening to freeze more than $127 million in tax revenue that the Palestinian government receives on a monthly basis to help it run its affairs. The Israeli government is also threatening to bring before the dock Palestinian officials and accuse them of war crimes. This follows the Palestinian statehood bid and also the most recent efforts by Palestinian officials to join the International Criminal Court and other global organizations. Now, the Palestinians say that these harsh moves by the Israelis merely justify their position. On Tuesday, the United Nations Security Council rejected the Palestinian statehood bid. This called for Israel to withdraw from the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem and for an independent Palestinian state to be established by late 2017. 9 out of 15 votes were required. Only 8 were actually achieved. And then, of course, those who voted against it were both Australia and the United States. Now, the Russian ambassador to the United Nations has said that this shows the monopolization of the United States. He called it a strategic mistake.
Well, here on RT, we've been hearing some opposing views on the Palestinian resolution. My colleague Mac Trazer earlier spoke to Israeli politician Einat Wilf and also Mustafa Barghouti. He is the General Secretary of the Palestinian National Initiative.
The resolution is completely imbalanced. The reason we need to achieve peace by means of two states of two people is because there are two peoples who have a right to the land. This is something that the Arab world and the Palestinians have rejected for decades. And this is why they don't have a state.
I apologize for interrupting you, but in terms of this, you said that both people do have claims to the land. In terms of the settlements, though, the Israelis continue, certain hardliners among them continue building settlements in Palestinian property. Isn't that not respecting that both sides have claim to the land?
There are also people on the Palestinian side who have something that they call a right of return, a demand to flood Israel with 5 million Arabs,
but you are
Israel
conducting right of return for people who have not been in this country for hundreds of years, thousands of years. This resolution is not imbalanced, and of course it's not going to be pleasant to the Israeli side, but this resolution is saying very clearly, and it is compatible with international law. This is terrible. I was born in Jerusalem. I worked in Jerusalem as a medical doctor for 15 years, and they don't allow me to go to Jerusalem. By which right? Both people have the right to defend themselves, yes. But in the case of Hamas, Hamas was abiding completely by the ceasefire. It was Israel that violated it. It's not good for the Israelis or Palestinians to continue this.
In other news, Germany reportedly made a U-turn on the potential exit of Greece from the Eurozone this week, making it clear the union would manage without it. In fact, Berlin thinks Greece's departure from the shared currency would be almost unavoidable if the left-wing opposition party Syriza comes to power in 3 weeks' time, the Spiegel magazine reported. Syriza is currently leading the polls with promises of cancelling austerity measures and a chunk of the country's debt. Germany's finance minister has already warned against taking that path. However, economics professor Dimitri Madras thinks an exit from the euro is highly unlikely.
Our currency, our money is euro. Drachma is virtual money. It's a money which does not exist. The Greek exit is more or less a virtual reality than a real case. The exit of Greece from euro may insert a cost in Europe of 1 trillion euros, more or less. So there will be a mutual cost. That's why I believe that this cannot take place. And if this happens, this will point out that euro cannot solve any kind of problems in the context of the mechanism that it has invented.
One country which is somewhat more determined than Greece to stick to the euro is Lithuania, which celebrated the new year by joining the zone. The Prime Minister was first to withdraw some of the newly adopted currency from a cash machine, taking out €10 just after midnight on the 1st of January. The government hopes that being part of the European currency club will boost stability and attract investment. Not everybody, though, is so keen. A poll in November by the country's central bank found that nearly 40% of the population was against it. Political commentator Thierry Baudet says he's not sure Lithuania will get what it's bargaining for.
Very odd, I think, that the Lithuanian government decided to join the Eurozone this quickly, as well as given the fact that about half of the population is very skeptical about joining the euro. They might face short-term gains in their economy, but long-term losses, because the Eurozone is such a large currency area, and it inevitably will face asymmetric shocks, and the way it will deal with it will necessarily not be in the interest of all the members of the Eurozone.
Still to come in the programme, New Year cheer. We recap the celebrations and look back at some of the highlights of 2014 and how social media helped shape the news. Plus, we bring you the story of the girls' high school basketball team dropped from a tournament for wearing I Can't Breathe t-shirts. These stories in a few minutes. Now, the new year in Bahrain has been welcomed by social unrest. The Gulf nation has been engulfed in angry anti-government protests for a week now. The trouble broke out after key opposition leader Sheikh Ali Salman was arrested last Sunday on charges of promoting regime change by force. Well, Sheikh Salman isn't the only opposition figure to anger the Gulf monarchy. RT's been following the story of Nabil Rajab for quite some time now, and apart from being Bahrain's most prominent human rights activist, Rajab is considered by some to be the unofficial leader of the opposition. His fight for human rights and democracy previously landed him 2 years in jail. Rajab was released in the spring of 2014, but was then promptly rearrested over a tweet deemed offensive to the government. Just before New Year, Nabil told my colleague Kevin Owen he's under no illusions about what 2015 holds for him.
Sad year passed where many people were killed in my country fighting for democracy and human rights, with the neglectings and ignorance of the international community.
When you have your quiet moments away from the cameras, away from the press, etc., do you ever feel a bit beaten down by it all, that you're not getting anywhere? Or do you have an optimism to go into 2015, to carry it forward to 2016? What keeps you going?
Well, first of all, you have to remember I have a court verdict coming the 20th of January, and I might be sentenced again for a time up to 6 years. because of the tweet I made. I am harassed on a daily basis here. My life is very difficult, but we are determined. We are committed to the principle that we are fighting for.
Still ahead, we shed some light on the world of cyber attacks, with Russian hackers blamed for causing havoc on the net. We look at the real cyber threats facing the world.
Would that essentially mean that your efforts to spread atheism around the world are essentially limited to most fortunate parts of it?
I would like to think not, because I think that a lot of the problems that the poorer people have may be brought upon them by religion. I don't deny that religion can be consoling to them, but what I'm suggesting is that they may be actually oppressed by religion. I think, for example, of the place of women in Islamic societies, where they are hideously oppressed by religious forces.
Hello again. Now, this week, the world bid farewell to 2014, a year marked by military conflicts and political tensions, but also great sporting events and scientific breakthroughs. Festivities spread far and wide as the arrival of 2015 marched across the globe. Spectacular firework displays, decorated celebrations, and hundreds of cities worldwide. From Sydney to Paris to New York, people got together to ring in the new year with high hopes and best wishes. The grandest celebrations here in Russia were, of course, held in Moscow, lighting up Red Square. Thousands gathered in the city centre to join in the fun, defying sub-zero temperatures. The night heralded the start, too, of the traditional 10-day-long holiday season. Russia will be celebrating Orthodox Christmas on January the 7th. Well, from festivities to battlefields and street protests, 2014 will live in the memory, and much of it was caught on camera too. Here's some of our footage that we got from our video agency, Rupley. They were on the front lines of this year's top stories. Well, whatever the highs and lows of the year, if there's one place that people always go to slug things out and get things off their chest, it is Twitter. Take this picture, for instance, the French president meeting his Kazakh counterpart, and it didn't take too long before Twitter users had him dressed up all sorts of other ways too. The British Prime Minister also became a target after he posted a selfie of a phone call to President Obama. Star Trek legend Patrick Stewart made it quite clear what he thought of the picture. And US comedian Rob Delaney was one of many to join Cameron and Obama's conversation. And when Sweden went hunting for a mystery foreign submarine in its waters, Twitter was also on the case. Some users made satirical suggestions about the origins of the Phantom Menace. And RT's head of social media, Ivor Crotty, told Kevin Owen how online communities did help shape the news in 2014.
It's the year that I call, in my own way, the year of the war of words, in that hashtags and social media profile and social media impact became more important, in my opinion, than ever, and actually became a news talking point. We've run a few hashtags together to let people have a look at how the year looked on Twitter.
Seeing it there, Malaysia Airlines 370, Gaza, MH17, Ebola, Ferguson, everything that's happened to there, ISIS. We could go on and on. Actually, the list could go on and on and on. Of course, there's a big story that kicked off in Great Britain, but was it to be Great Britain anymore? Was it to be the United Kingdom anymore, was the question. Was Scotland going to go its own way in September? It didn't at the end of the day, but it was close.
Well, in my opinion,
Cameron was sweating at the last minute, wasn't he?
I think that was one of the biggest political stories of the year.
But there was a lighter note to it too. A bit of humour came out of it. Well,
yes, thankfully, a bit of British humour won as well. I think there were some really funny moments during that campaign. I think one of my favourites was the notorious face swap where they took Alex Salmond and David Cameron's faces and swapped them over.
That's quite creepy, actually.
Yeah, that tweet gives an awful lot of people the willies, I've got to tell you. Yeah.
Let's always look at the bright side because we're human beings, and that's what we do.
Yes, yeah.
Take us through that.
One of the pieces that we really enjoyed on the social media desk was the famous face-to-face
yes.
between Vladimir Putin and
it was
President
shown
Barack
as a
Obama.
cutaway, wasn't it, on all the networks? One looking at the other for a minute.
Yeah. So we managed to, we took that footage. The brilliant guys at Rupley caught the footage, ran the split screen, and we picked it up and added music to it on Kobe, which is a Russian platform. We take a small snippet of video and add a bit of music.
I looked at you, you looked at me. I smiled at you, you smiled at me, and we're on our way.
Don't know, won the battle of the looks there. Well, talking of looks...
This was a great story and something that social media guys like me thrive on. Sofico interviewed Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, earlier in the year. And this was shortly after Barack Obama had done a selfie, shortly after the Oscar selfies. Yeah. She proposed to Mr. Lavrov that we take a selfie, and his response was, "What's that?" Is that like what President Obama and the Danish Prime Minister did? And he vouched for it, and they took a selfie. And,
excellent. Ivor Crotty, head of RT's social media network. Good job. We'll give you a day off.
Thanks very much, Kevin. Cheers.
Now, every second around the world, a computer network somewhere is under attack. This is actually a real-time map of hacking activities collected by the Norse cyber security company. The United States, as you can see, is often a prime target. Our online security is very much a 21st century dilemma, and we have put together a series to shed more light on the world of hacking. From banks to Hollywood studios, cyber attackers target all sorts of companies. Washington slapped a fresh round of sanctions on North Korea this week over its alleged involvement in the hacking of Sony Pictures. Pyongyang has denied having a hand in the cyber attack, and private security experts have said the hackers responsible were of Russian origin. They claim there was linguistic evidence, and Murad Gazdev explains how jumping to that conclusion, though, has become par for the course.
When in doubt, blame Russian hackers.
Russian hackers are said to have attacked
hackers from Russia.
Russian website is hacking.
Russian hackers. A Russian cyber crime ring.
And it isn't just news. Hollywood's been obsessed with wacky Russian hackers for decades.
Do you know what will happen if they trace it here? The chief of computers will call me a genius, move me to Moscow, and give me $1 million hard currency.
So what's earned Russian hackers a reputation to be feared above any others?
Russian hackers is a kind of brand, like French wines or Swiss watches. It's more legend than reality.
Even so, Britain banned its troops from bringing mobile phones to a recent exercise, fearing Russian espionage. Moscow has also been accused of carrying out highly sophisticated cyber operations.
I am invincible!
Russia is also the world's third biggest sender of junk email, called spam. In terms of expertise, the country has a very strong IT tradition.
We've managed to maintain the very high standard of the Soviet Union's technical education. Our students, when they go to intern at Google or Facebook, often get very lucrative offers.
Although many of Silicon Valley's best and brightest trace their roots to Russia, when it comes to cybercrime, the borders apparently become blurred.
Modern cybercriminal activity, it's a mix of different kind of nationalities. They work together on doing the cybercriminal activities.
The world of hackers is as divided as any. On the one side, you have the so-called white hats, benevolent hackers out to make the web a safer place. Their nemesis are the black hats, hackers whose work, whether for money or infamy, has given hacking such a shady reputation. But in between, there's all sorts.
It's, I don't know, probably the moral choice of each young guy who, after graduating from the university, just chooses his side.
So while Russian hackers do sometimes cause havoc, they're not quite the enigmatic menace they're so often made out to be.
Yes! I am invincible!
Morad Gazdiev, RT, Moscow.
On our website at the moment, lighting up the weekend sky, the quadranted meteor shower became the first of the year, sending out up to 80 shooting stars an hour. You can take a look at the spectacular images at rt.com. Also there, more than 10,000 people applied to be shot. A UK company was flooded with CVs to fill the position of human paintball impact tester. Our website has got the details. In Sweden this week, crowds turned out in major cities in support of the country's Muslim community following a string of attacks on mosques. Thousands took to the streets of Gothenburg, Malmö and also Stockholm, the country's three largest cities. About 40 different groups organised the protest, and Sweden's culture minister was also present. It is in response to 3 arson attacks carried out in the space of a week, the latest of which was early on New Year's morning in one of the country's biggest cities. The mosque was firebombed and graffiti sprayed on its walls. 3 days earlier, someone tried to set fire to another place of worship in the south of the country, while on Christmas Day a petrol bomb was thrown through the window of another mosque. The rise in violence against Sweden's Muslim community has been condemned by leaders, insisting it won't be tolerated. Well, RT got the thoughts of Samir Muric, an imam from one of the recently targeted mosques.
People that are attacking these mosques and that have opinions about Muslims full of hatred is mainly because they don't know Muslims. They don't know the religion properly. What they know about religion is based on prejudices, what they read from anti-Muslim sites and so on. But also, another factor is also fear, that a lot of these people attacking Muslim mosques and so on, they do it out of fear, because they have a fear that the minorities are going to take over. Because that's what their ideologies are teaching them, basically, that these minorities are going to take over, so you need to secure the place in your society and so on. So I think it's lack of knowledge and fear.
Let's have a quick look at some other world news this hour. Dozens of people have reportedly been killed and wounded by a blast in the Yemeni city of Dammar. The explosion took place at the headquarters of the Shia rebels who've taken over large parts of the country. Yemen has been in violent turmoil since 2011 and has been rocked by a wave of deadly terror attacks in recent months. Thousands of Australians have been forced to flee their homes as wildfires rage across the south. Some 2,000 firefighters are struggling to contain out-of-control blazes, which are being fanned by strong winds, while temperatures in the region remain in the high 30s. At least a dozen aircraft are aiding operations. A major emergency has been declared. The fires are being classed as Australia's worst since the so-called Ash Wednesday back in 1983. And 4 more bodies have been recovered from the Java Sea in a search operation to find the wreckage of the Air Asia plane that came down last Sunday. 34 bodies have been found so far and 5 large objects detected. The hunt to find the main wreckage of the plane has been suspended due to bad weather. The jet, with 162 people on board, went missing on its way from Indonesia to Singapore. And suspected Boko Haram militants have seized at least 40 boys in a raid on a village in northeastern Nigeria. The group has reportedly been seizing young men in recent months to use as soldiers. It is also currently holding around 200 schoolgirls captive who were abducted in April last year. Earlier in the same day, Boko Haram gunmen also killed scores of soldiers in an attack on a military base. Public discontent over the excessive use of force by police in the United States has meant pictures like this becoming common in recent months. Those were the last words spoken by Eric Garner, a black man put in a lethal chokehold by a white NYPD officer. They've been the main rallying cry too for protesters, but it's not welcome everywhere. A girls' high school basketball team, for example, has been banned from a tournament for wearing shirts bearing the phrase. We spoke to them.
Living in such a small town and seeing all the protests going around, I think it was like we don't get to participate in anything like that. So to have a opportunity to show that we too want to express our opinions.
Yeah. Wearing these t-shirts will promote awareness for such things such as police brutality.
The ban has been lifted at this point from we're allowed to wear the shirts at the tournament. We still won't be in the tournament because our spot has been filled.
Yeah, we dropped out from the tournament and then our spot had been filled, and now one day at the tournament they lifted the bans.
However, wearing I Can't Breathe t-shirts has gone better for pro athletes, including NBA stars Kobe Bryant and LeBron James. They have been showing their support for the protest movement. Also signing up are athletes from America's National Football League, the NFL. So just coming up to 5:30 in the afternoon here in Moscow. Up next, it's the second part of our special report on the evolution and the shortcomings of the global economy. That's next on RT International.